Welcome back to the website, The Psychology of Obesity.
As we mentioned in our previous videos, low self-esteem and depressions can greatly affect the morbidly obese individual. These negative self-images in which we have can become distorted and even destructive, as we perpetuate unhelpful thinking habits and behaviors, which work against our desire for change.
However, the good news is that you can change how you think about yourself. You can improve your body and self-image.
But let us begin with some of the fundamental aspects of cognitive behavioral therapy and rational thinking. The CBT model is rather simple and easy to understand. How we think about a situation or object, including how we think about ourselves, affects our emotions, which in turn affects our behavior. By changing our thinking, we can alter our behavior.
Thoughts and actions are a product of classical conditioning. If we continually tell ourselves that we are fat, ugly, useless, or unlovable, our actions and behaviors will reflect those negative thoughts.
By recognizing and changing those negative thought patterns, we can greatly affect how we perceive ourselves and increase our chances of combating obesity. Negative thinking is nothing new or unique to your situation. It is estimated that the average person has over 60,000 negative thoughts in any given day, but when we dwell on those negative thoughts, or distort those thoughts into irrational thinking, we can cause innumerable harm and emotional distress. By recognizing our unhelpful negative thinking habits and using a simple thought-stopping technique, we can begin to improve our outlook on life, our feelings of self-worth, and change and improve our self-image.
But let's begin by examining some of the negative thinking habits in which we often engage in. Our perceptions of ourselves and others are often colored by negative thinking styles in which we see the world and situations around us. These negative thought patterns include mind reading, when we assume we know what others are thinking; emotional reasoning, just because we have an emotional feeling towards something, it doesn't mean it's necessarily that way; memories. Past memories are not always an accurate predictor of what will happen in the future or the now. Black and white thinking. Things are not either totally white or totally black, there are shades of gray. Ask yourself, where is this on the spectrum? Mental filtering. When we notice only what the mental filter allows or wants us to notice, we often dismiss anything that doesn't fit. Ask yourself, am I only noticing the bad stuff? Am I filtering out the positive? Compare and despair. Are we seeing only the good and positive aspects in others and comparing ourselves negatively against them and despairing against that comparison? What would be a more balanced and helpful way of looking at it? Catastrophizing. Do you imagine and believe that the worst possible thing will happen? What's most likely to happen? Judgmental thinking. Making evaluations and judgments about events, ourselves, others, or the world rather than describing what we actually see and have evidence for. Ask yourself if there another perspective. Should and musts. Thinking or saying I should or shouldn't and I must puts pressure on ourselves and sets up unrealistic expectations. Critical self. Do you put yourself down or are overly self-critical, blaming yourself for events or situations that are not totally your responsibility? Predictions. Do you believe you'll know what is going to happen in the future? Can you really predict the future? Ask yourself, how likely is it to really happen? Mountains and molehills. Exaggerating the negatives minimizes the odds on how things will likely turn out, or the positives. Ask yourself, how would someone else see this? What's the bigger picture?
Once you recognize a destructive thought pattern, you must do something to disrupt that negative image and or thought in order to prevent it from growing stronger. Clapping your hands, snapping a rubber band, or simply yelling stop will momentarily disrupt your pattern of thought. You then will need to replace that negative image or thought with a more positive, rational image or thought. Tell yourself, I am in control of my thoughts and actions. I can choose to respond and think the way I want to.
There are many excellent sites which deal with the CBT method for things like depression, self-esteem, and anxiety. And I will include some of these sites on our link page.
But let's talk for a moment about body image and how it relates to what we have learned. If we continually tell ourselves that we are fat, ugly, hideous, unlovable, we perpetuate a negative image of ourselves. That image can be self-destructive and somewhat irrational. Whenever you catch yourself perpetuating these negative thought habits, clap your hands and say stop, then immediately replace that image or idea with a more rational way of thinking, like saying, yes, I have a weight problem, but I am working on that problem, changing how I think about food and incorporating diet and exercise into my life. Who I am is not determined by my physical attributes, but by my actions and character, in which I have control over. I do not love and care for my friends and family because of what they look like, but because of the person they are inside. If I do not judge them, why should I judge myself?
By replacing those negative images of yourself, you will go a long way in reducing depression, anxiety, and the distorted self-images that are associated with obesity. And you will be able to address the specific concerns you have with your weight and the perceptions you have with yourself and your body.
So remember, recognize, stop, and replace negative and distorted thinking with more positive and rational thoughts.
In our next video, we will talk a little about charting your moods and eating habits and begin to recognize their effect on how and what we eat.
It is our hope that you have learned a little about stopping negative thinking today, and will practice some of the techniques we have taught you.
And so until next time.
Good luck.
And thank you for visiting The Psychology of Obesity.